Booktube, Sara here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reads for April the 21st of 2018. So I am going to jump right into the books this week because this is already, I'm sure of it, going to be a horrendously long video. And that's not necessarily, well, it's not a bad reason why, but I just know it's going to be long. So grab yourselves a beverage of your choice. I have my tea, my David's Tea Santa's Secret. I know, very festive for the end of April, but I love it, and of course I buy a stash of it every holiday season, so I drink it throughout the year. So I've got my tea. You grab a beverage of your choice, get a comfy seat, and let's start talking about the books. Because guys, I finished 8 books this week. Yes, I read 8 books. Mind blown. I mean, 3 of them I finished over the weekend because I was so close to finishing them anyway when I recorded my last weekly reads. So, you know, it kind of goes without saying that I was going to get them done. But yeah, 8 of them, I'm surprised at that one, guys. Seriously. So let's jump right in and get started. So the first book that I finished was Carolina Girl by Virginia Kantra. This is a contemporary romance novel. It is book number 2 in the Dare Island series. It was published in 2013 by Berkeley, and it has an average rating of 3.91 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars. I got 2 challenges compared to this one. For the RRC Monthly Challenge, I got challenge number 9, which was International Astronomy Day, which was to read a book with a celestial body on the cover like the stars, the moon, or the sun. And the sun is sinking into the horizon on the cover, so it counts. And for the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs Quarterly Challenge, I got Doc, which was read a book with a smart character, a nerd, or a geek. Meg, our female protagonist in this story, is a very smart young lady. She went to Harvard, and she, you know, had this great job as an executive in New York, so it fits the category. So the premise of this story, I loved. I love this entire series. If you like small town romance, this is set on a small island off the coast of North Carolina. It's part of North Carolina, but you know, just off the coast, and a very cute little small community, and it follows one family. So this is Meg's story. Meg is the younger sister of Matt, and Matt's story was the first book, which was Carolina Home. And Meg, at the very beginning of the book, without, you know, giving anything away, because it literally happens right at the beginning of the book, she loses her job, and this job was her entire life. It was her identity. And she was a very, very high-powered executive for some company in New York City. And, you know, she had just bought a condo with her boyfriend. They've been dating for 6 years, but, you know, the relationship isn't the best. You know, not that anything bad necessarily happens. It's just not, it's more of a relationship of convenience. They're both kind of like in the same type of job, and they understand each other. They settled, essentially. So anyway, her mother in the previous book, you know, I don't want to give away too much, but this one does kind of follow the first book, had been in a bad car accident. And so Meg decides to take this time after losing her job to go home and figure out what she's going to do. Well, she runs into Sam, and Sam was the guy that she has loved all through high school. He was Matt's best, or he is Matt's best friend, her older brother's best friend. And, you know, the relationship kind of goes from there. It was an absolutely adorable story. The thing that I really liked is that I actually didn't like Meg in the first book. You meet her in that first book, and I found her to be very snobbish, and, you know, that whole first impression thing, I didn't like her very much. But then getting to know her in this book, I realized that there's a lot more to her, and a lot more that she was going through, and, you know, it just goes to show you, you really don't know somebody until you really get to know them. You know, you really should try not to go off first impressions of people. And, you know, there were some great scenes in this book. Part of it takes place over Halloween. And, you know, there's a great scene where she takes the girls, her niece and these other girls, out trick-or-treating as pirates and stuff like that. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Again, it's a great small-town romance. So if you like that, definitely check it out. And I highly recommend it, obviously. The next book that I finished is When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. I hope I'm saying her name right. This is a YA contemporary romance, and it was narrated on audio by Sandhya Mantha and Vicus Adam. It was published in 2017 by Simon Pulse. It has an average rating of 3.77 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 4 stars. This I got 2 challenges for as well. The first one was for the Fairy Tale Bingo for week number 6, which the category was Alice in Wonderland, and you had to read a book with a name in the title, so obviously this one fit. And another one for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, it was read a book with at least 2 two of the blue, green, or gold on the cover, or a book with a phone, text, or email communications between the main characters. And in this story, Dimple and Rishi email and text back and forth quite a bit, so it fit in that one. This story was adorable. I know it hasn't had some of the best ratings on Goodreads. I find that some people either really, really love it or really, really didn't like it. And I didn't love it. It wasn't the best book I've ever read, far from it, but it was a thoroughly enjoyable story. Again, it's a YA, which is something I typically don't read, but this is the story of, obviously, Dimple and Rishi, and the two of them are both from Indian American families. Their parents were born in India, but they were born in America, and they both are expected to become certain things by their family. Rishi is the oldest son, like there's him and his younger brother, so he's the older one. So he's expected to, eventually get married and get a really good job and settle down and kind of, be the patriarch, eventually be the patriarch of the family. And Dimple is expected to marry a good Indian boy and, kind of become a mom. But, Rishi has no problem doing that. He's always taken on that role of being the oldest son, and, this is his duty and this is what he needs to do. He's very traditional, which is what I kind of found very refreshing, is that oftentimes you don't see it being the boy, being the one who feels that sense of family duty, that it's typically the female. But in Rishi's case, it's him. And, when him and Dimple were much younger, their parents have been very good friends, but they hadn't met before. And there was almost an arranged marriage kind of idea. Not that it was set in stone that these two were going to have to get married, but, the parents both thought it would be a great idea to have the two of them meet by chance, or meet and see if anything went from there. So they're literally just out of high school. Excuse me. It's the summer between high school and college. And, neither one of them is really necessarily ready to get married, but, So Rishi knows this. Rishi knows that he's going there to meet Dimple. It's this, sorry, I forgot to mention, it's a summer program at Stanford University for web development, or for an app, to develop an app, like for your phone or something like that. And Dimple really wanted to go, and her parents agreed, and she thought it was crazy, and that her parents would allow this. And then, of course, she finds out later, excuse me, that the reason is because she's going to be meeting Rishi. Well, she doesn't know that. And, their first meeting is kind of really funny. But then the two of them decide to start spending time together, and of course a romance ensues. It's absolutely adorable, and how the both of them kind of deal with their whole family backgrounds and what's expected of them, but what they want. Rishi really wants to do the right thing and be this good Indian son and, do what his parents expect him to do, but deep in his heart of hearts, he has something else he wants to do, and he's afraid to say what that is. Whereas Dimple has no problem going after what she wants. She doesn't necessarily want to get married. She doesn't necessarily want to have a family. She wants to be a web developer. She wants to have a career. And, it was a really great story. And what I get a kick out of when reading YA, especially, I found it mostly in this one because the parents, want certain things for their children. As an adult, as a woman who's 39 years old, reading about these kids who are 20 years younger than me, sometimes in some cases more, I find I'm siding with the parents in a way. Like, the parents aren't doing anything to them out of spite. It's not because they don't like them. It's because they love them so much that they want to do good things and, to be good people. And it's just funny how your perspective changes. If I had read this at 18, I would have been more like Dimple, like very hard-headed and very, it's my way, I know what's best, this is how it's going to be. You can only have a career. You cannot have everything, because that's her mindset. She thinks that if she settles down and gets married, her career is gone. Not in this day and age. So yeah, it was really, really adorable. And if you like contemporary YA, give it a shot. The author did a great job with this one, and the narration on this one was really great. And it is available on the Audible Romance package. So if you do subscribe to that and you're interested, you can check this one out. There is some sexual content in this book, but nothing is graphic, and there is some swearing. So just keep that in mind as well. If you have someone who's a teenager and you might, if they might be interested in it, just so you know. But it was nothing that was anything that, if I had a teenager who was, 15, 16, 17, I don't think I would have a problem with them reading it. Let's put it that way. The next book that I finished this week was The One Who Changed Everything by Lilian Darcy. This was another contemporary romance novel. It is the first book in the Cherry Sisters series. It is a Harlequin special edition novel, and number 2282, published in 2013, of course, by Harlequin. It has an average rating of 3.36 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 3 stars, and to be honest, guys, I gave it to the lower end of 3 stars. I had no challenges for this one. This was one of my the print books that I'm reading, and not that I have a problem fitting those into challenges. They just didn't fit into anything that I was currently doing. So that's that. Because I kind of read these like as I get a chance. I try not to fit them into challenges because I'm not necessarily going to get them read as quickly. So yeah, I had problems with this book, you guys. I had problems with the characters in this book, but the one thing that this book really kind of made me realize is I'm very much a character-driven reader. I know a lot of people are like plot-driven and things like that, but I'm very much character. If I don't like what the characters are doing or I don't agree with the decisions the characters make, I tend to give books a lower star rating. This was the story of sorry, I'm looking at the names because I write all the names down so I don't forget. Daisy and Tucker. Now, there's a backstory for the two of these two people. Tucker was once engaged to Daisy's older sister, Leah. Daisy's the youngest of the 3 sisters. And they were engaged, and, you know, things weren't going well, and they decided to break off the engagement and not get married. Very smart on their part. You know, as someone who's been there personally many, many, many years ago, I knew damn well. I mean, I knew when I got engaged that it was a giant mistake. But then you get, you know, brought into all of the preparations for the wedding and all these things, and you kind of lose sight of that, the marriage, and you're looking at the wedding itself. Does that make sense? But I did. Thankfully, I did not make that mistake. And instead I met my now husband, and he is absolutely perfect, and I love him to death. And I am so, so glad that that's the route that I ended up taking. But, you know, I understand where these characters are coming from. I got that part of the story. To just know this is going to be a mistake. Not that they didn't dislike each other. They were friends. You know, there was no animosity. Nobody did anything wrong. They just knew this wasn't meant to be. And you know what, that's fine, and I was cool with that part of the story, but that's like the backstory. A lot of this book kind of goes back and forth, because it was 10 years earlier that he had been engaged to Leah. Or Lee, excuse me, not Leah, just Lee. And during that time, over a 2-day span, he met Daisy, which is Leah's, like I said, Leah's younger sister. And during the breakup, he just kept thinking about Daisy and wondering to himself, did he break off this engagement to Lee because of Daisy? You met this girl twice. Once when you walked into the kitchen, because she had just come home from Paris. She was doing a cooking school in Paris. And you walked into the kitchen and asked for a glass of water. And then the second time was she yelled hi out her bedroom window while you were dropping her sister off. That was it. That was the meetings. And then after their engagement split up, Daisy ended up heading to California for a job. So now he hasn't seen her in 10 years. But yet he still thinks about her all the time. I found it unbelievable. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't see it. I didn't see how he kept pining after this girl who he met a total of 2 times. I mean, obviously he thought she was pretty, but, you know. And then now she's back in town. So the present day part of the story is that she's back in town. Her parents own a resort. And she's helping them redo the landscaping. Well, Tucker, of course, owns a landscaping company, so they hire him, and the story goes from there. I just really didn't get the characters' motivations. I didn't like, really, Tucker or Daisy very much, to be completely honest. I did like the other sisters. You do meet Mary Jane, which is the oldest sister, and, of course, Lee. So I'm interested to read their stories. The story wasn't badly written. I just didn't agree with the characters' decisions. And for that reason, it got the lower star rating. The next book, thankfully after that, I went back up on a high note, and I read Exclusively Yours by Shannon and Stacey. This is another contemporary romance novel. This is book number 1 in the Kowalski family series, and it was narrated on audio by Lauren Fontgang. This was published in 2010 by Carina Press. It has an average rating of 3.84 stars, 3.84 stars on Goodreads. I can talk. and I give it 4.5 stars. I loved this book, you guys. 2 challenges for this one. The Where Are You Reading? I got the state of New Hampshire. Yay. And for the Pass the Parcel round, for the 10th challenge, or for Pass the Parcel, for week number 6, you had to read a book off of, they give you a certain number of, about a half a dozen different lists that you can pick from, and you need to pick a book from one of those lists to read from. And the book that I picked this off of was from the Nature Lovers Romances. So this one takes place camping. So this story, I will be honest, this is a reread for me. And I loved it just as much this time as I loved it the first time I read it. This is the first time, though, I've listened to it on audio. And the audio was great, by the way. So this is the story of Carrie and Joe. And Carrie and Joe used to date in high school. And they were that quintessential, it was actually, because this book was published in 2010, they finished high school in 1989. So, you know, it's been 20 years since they finished high school. So they're older, like they're close to 40 in this book. And Carrie realized she wanted more out of life. So right after graduation, she broke up with Joe. And she headed off to California to make a name for herself as a journalist. Joe decided to do writing on his, he actually became very depressed after Carrie left. And he started drinking and he started writing. And originally he had planned on being like, writing literary fiction and stuff that would be up for like a Pulitzer Prize or something like that. But then ended up starting to write, to get out his anger and his aggression, writing like these horrible, scary murder type books. And he's now a New York Times bestseller. They're making one of his books into a movie. He's really done well for himself. Very, very well for himself. So Carrie is working for a rag mag, essentially, a celebrity gossip type magazine. And her boss just found out that she used to date Joe in high school. And he is very much in the public radar now because of the movie and because he's almost a recluse of sorts. He doesn't grant interviews, so this, Carrie's boss believes that there's this, like, secret, like, what is he hiding? He's got to be hiding something. The public must know. So she pretty much tells Carrie and blackmails her that if she doesn't get an exclusive interview with him, then she's out of a job. So she heads back to New Hampshire from California and approaches Joe, and this all happens right at the very, very beginning of the book. And he's about to head out on a 2-week-long camping trip with his entire family. His 2 older brothers and his twin sister, and their extended families. Like, his oldest brother has 4 little boys, is married with 4 boys. His twin sister is separated, and she has a younger daughter. Not a younger, like 12 or 13-year-old. And then his other brother is single, recently single. The brother, his name is Kevin. His book is next, which I'm very much looking forward to. And the parents. So he pretty much tells Carrie, you can come on this camping trip with us, but if that's the case, then, and every day you survive a day with the family, you get to ask me one question. And, but there's ground rules. You can't ask me about this or this or this. So, and from there, essentially hilarity ensues. It is brilliant. It is 2 weeks camping with this family. It is hysterical. I mean, I just loved it so, so much. I loved all the characters in this, I mean, there were a lot of characters in this book, but they all had such distinct personalities, and all of them had their own storyline kind of going on as well. Like I said, Kevin just was kind of going through this divorce, and, Mike and Lisa, which is the oldest, the oldest brother and his wife with the 4 boys, they're kind of having issues, and of course Terry, Joe's twin sister, is having issues with, her impending divorce and things like that. So there's a lot going on, but it's really, really well written. I adore Shannon and Stacey. This is a fabulous series, and I absolutely recommend it. I think the entire series is available as part of the Audible romance package. So again, if you're interested, definitely check it out. There is quite a bit of sexy times in this book, as well as there is some swearing, so keep that in mind as well. But yeah, absolutely love this one. Alright, so then I went from a great book to another not so great book, and that was Falling for the Mom-to-Be by Jenna Mindel. This is an inspirational romance novel. It is book number 1 in the Maple Spring series. It is a love-inspired romance, number 946. It was published in 2015 by Harlequin. It has an average rating of 3.98 stars on Goodreads, so I am probably very much alone in my assessment of this book. And I gave it only 2 stars. I got 3 challenges done out of this, though. This was my book for the Harlequin Romance Monthly Theme Reading Club on Facebook, hosted, of course, by the lovely Sissy at the Romance Queen of Booktube channel. This was also for Cinderella's, for the Cinderella task, week 11. The task is Mulan, which was read a book where a character starts something new. The main lead character in this book becomes a mom. That's starting something new. And for the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs Quarterly Challenge, I got read a book with a purple or dark blue cover or a book with pregnancy as part of the story. Obviously, this has it in spades. So this is the story of Annie and Matthew. Now, I read book number 2 earlier this year in February with Sissy, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was a really cute story. This one, again, it goes back to that whole, I have to like the characters. And Annie, I didn't mind so much. Matthew, I really had issues with him. I feel, though, that was partly the fault of the author, because you kind of are immediately thrown into this story. So the entire premise of this story is that Annie's husband just passed away a month earlier, a month or 6 weeks earlier, and of a heart attack. And she's older, like she's almost 40, I think. And they'd been trying for years and years. They'd been married for a long, long time and had been trying to get pregnant, and it just hadn't happened. And her husband's job was, he was on a freight liner on the Great Lakes. And so he'd be gone for months at a time. So obviously his last time home, she ended up getting pregnant, and he didn't know, she didn't know. At the very beginning of the book is when you find out, but he had already been gone for like 4 to 6 weeks or however long since he had passed away. And you meet Matthew right away. Matthew is a number of years younger, I think at least 8 years younger than Annie. Not that that's a problem, because it's not, but sometimes he showed his immaturity. Even though he wouldn't be, he'd still be in his early 30s, but still he just seemed a little immature to me. And he was one of the people who worked with Jack, which was Annie's husband. And he actually found him. He's the one who found him deceased. And Matthew blames himself because Jack had been complaining about heartburn after dinner that night. And, you know, they of course just gave him antacids. And, you know, Matthew's blaming himself, saying, you know, if we'd given him baby aspirin or something like that, maybe he'd still be alive today. You can't go through life thinking that way. He had no medical history of a heart condition. So, you know, they had no idea that this was going to happen. It was just one of those things that happens, sadly. But anyway, at the very beginning of the book, and that's what I mean, you don't get this backstory at the beginning. You find this out as the story progresses. And Matthew kind of like, he finds out that she's pregnant like right away. And of course decides that he's going to take care of her. End of story. She has no say in this matter. He takes over and comes into her life and takes over and decides he's going to look after her, even to the point like of telling her he's going to be in the delivery room with her. I'm sorry, who are you? Like, yes, you were friends with her husband, and yes, they alluded to the fact that they used to hang out together, like there were barbecues in the summer, things like that, but it just seemed odd. Like, again, that's probably part of the fault of the author as well, that they didn't establish the relationship good enough. I didn't find it believable. I'm sorry. Now, he goes on later in the book that he's always had a crush on Annie and things like that, and that's fine. I mean, he never did anything about it, which is, you know, super fantastic. You shouldn't do that. But, you know, he's now questioning himself, like, you know, Jack's only been gone a few months, and should I really be moving in? Not moving in the sense of actually physically moving into her home, but moving in on her as a widow. Like, let the woman grieve. And, you know, then she starts getting flack from the town because she's being seen with this much younger man, and her husband's only been dead a few months. And it was a lot of strife in this book, and I think personally it would have worked a lot better. I mean, it was a good idea for a story, but it would have worked a lot better had it have been, if I had written it, which I didn't, obviously. But that's okay. I mean, it was still, like, it wasn't a badly written book. I just feel that there were some things lacking. So like I was saying, it would have worked better had the author maybe had a prologue. Now, generally, I'm not a huge fan of prologues, but in some cases they work. And in this case, it would have worked if they could have established Jack's death and what happened. And, you know, you maybe got a little way of seeing how close Annie and Matthew had actually been when they were friends before Jack died. The other thing that would have worked really, really well would have been maybe if the baby had already been like a year old, you know, made it be like almost 2 years since Jack died. You know, give more time of a grieving process, but I guess there were certain elements of the story that fit better with her actually being pregnant, and I get that. But yeah, I didn't love this one. Luckily, I actually read book 2 first and not book 1 because I don't know if I would have continued on with the series. But there is a third book that I definitely do plan on reading because I really did enjoy the second book. Again, some of you might really like this book. It just wasn't for me. I didn't agree completely with all of the characters' decisions. The next book that I finished was Bewitched, Bothered, and Biscotti by Bailey Cates. Say that 3 times fast. This is a cozy mystery paranormal type genre of book. It is book number 2 in the Magical Baking Mystery series. This was narrated on audio by Amy Rubenate, and I just love her narration. This was published in 2012 by NAL. It has 4 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 3.5 stars. So I got 3 challenges completed of this book. This was again for my Cinderella challenge for the task of Tinkerbell, which was read a book with a magical creature. This one features a witch. That is a magical creature. For the fairy tale bingo for week number 7, Hansel and Gretel, you had to read a book that had the main page genre. So if you look on Goodreads, there's that little area in the side where it tells you what the genre of the book is. It had to say magic, and this one said fantasy magic, so they let it go. Like, they said that was perfectly acceptable. And I did sub something in here because I am unfortunately not going to get done all the books that I originally had on my TBR. There's one book I'm not going to finish. There has been other books added, like I finished more books than what were originally on my TBR, but I had to sub one out because I realized that because I'm reading so many extra books for other challenges, that I wasn't going to be able to fit this one in, and I was just going to be cutting it far too close. So I subbed this in for the Triple RC Monthly Challenge. The featured author was Joan Johnson. I am upset because I did want to read her. But one of the other, like instead of reading the author, you have other things that you could do instead. And one of them was read an author with the letter C as their initial. And this is by Bailey Cates, so it fits. This was super cute. I just read the first one in March for March Mystery Madness. And I absolutely love this. I love this series. I think it's just so stinking adorable. So this is a story of Katie. And Katie just, it doesn't carry too much off the first book. It is a separate story completely. But much like with Cozy Mystery Series, you know, you've kind of already got established the characters and the setting and things like that. And she just moved, in the first book, she just moved from her hometown in Ohio to Georgia, to Savannah, Georgia, to open up a bakery with her aunt and uncle. And she just found out that she's a hereditary witch. And, you know, the story kind of goes from there. But in this book, she's out for lunch or a breakfast date with her boyfriend, and they find a dead body. And this dead body belongs to that of a druid. And there is a group of druids who live in town, and they kind of, you know, run certain things. They're all very wealthy individuals. One of them's a judge, that kind of thing. And, you know, it's pretty much Katie trying to find out who done it with the help of the other women in her coven and stuff like that. This is a really great book. I found this one got a little bit darker than the first book, which is fine by me. I mean, I enjoy that. I am generally not a fan of paranormal. My stipulations to that are, of course, the Crew of Hunters series by Heather Graham. I think because it deals with ghosts, and ghosts and spirits and stuff like that, to me, are okay. Like, that's not an aspect of paranormal. That's an aspect of paranormal I'm okay with. The other aspect of paranormal that I'm okay with is witchcraft and witches. And, you know, I like when they're written well. And, you know, they're not stereotypical. And what I really love is that this character is written well. This is not, you know, it's not, the characters, the other women in the coven aren't like these hippie, trippy, tree hugger type, like, fluff bunny witches, if you will. You know, they're also not like the Craft type witches, if you guys ever saw that movie, you know, the goths dressed in all black and, you know, things like that. You know, they're not that stereotypical type of witch that you often see in books. These are normal people with normal jobs, and they just so happen to practice witchcraft, which I think is a lot of fun, because it is more true to life, you know, in this day and age. And yeah, I really do enjoy this series. If you guys like this kind of idea, definitely check it out. Again, these are all available from my library on Audible, on audio, so yours might have them available as well. I'm actually doing pretty good, guys. The next book that I finished is Pregnant by the Texan by Sara Orwig. This is another contemporary romance. It is book number 3 in the Texas Cattlemen's Club After the Storm series. It is a Harlequin Desire novel number 2342. It was published in 2014 by Harlequin. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.35 stars, and I gave it 3 stars. I got 3 challenges completed to this one. The first one was for the Triple RC, challenge number 7, which is April the 3rd is Tweed Day. So you had to read a book that had somebody wearing a coat on the cover, and they're wearing coats. The next one, this is the 16th book in my Stacking the Series challenge. There are 55 books in total in that challenge, and this is now the 16th one done. And for the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs challenge, for Garnet, it was read a book with a deep red cover or one with travel in the story. This one would probably count for both. With the red Desire banner, there's a red cover, sort of. And there's also quite a bit of travel with the 2 main characters traveling back and forth from the small town of Royal, Texas to like Dallas or Houston or Fort Worth or wherever. So yes, this book definitely takes place in Texas. Obviously, it's the Texas Cattlemen's Club. And I really like this miniseries. I think there's 6 or 7 books in total. I do plan on reading the entire series this year as part of my Stacking the Series challenge. And the entire premise behind this series, if you're unfamiliar with it, is that in the first book, a tornado rips through this small town in Texas. And now it's the aftermath, and it's how all these different characters are dealing with the situation and what happened. So this is Stella and Aaron's story. Now, Stella is the assistant to the mayor in this town. The mayor himself was critically injured, and he was in ICU for quite some time. The guy, I guess, next in charge, I don't know, is it a deputy mayor that you would call them? Like the next in line. If the mayor can't perform his duties, this person steps in. He was killed. So a lot of stuff is kind of falling on Stella's shoulders. Well, right after the tornado, you know, months earlier, because this is now months later, this book, sadly, and I'm a little disappointed that I didn't know this going in, took place at Christmas time. Now, if you guys have been watching my channel for any length of time, you know I read Christmas books at Christmas time. It was a little disconcerting for me to be reading this outside of the Christmas season, because that's just the way my brain works. I don't know why. You know, it's not like I dislike the book any less because of it, but I just kind of wish I'd known that. Now, Christmas wasn't a big thing in this book, but it does take place during the holiday season, and during parts of the book they're doing like a toy drive and a Christmas drive, and they talk about the Christmas ball at the Texas Cattlemen's Club and things like that. So Christmas is a part of the story, but it's not like a huge part of the story, if that makes sense. So anyway, back to Stella and Aaron. Right after the tornado hit, they had a one night together. And, of course, she got pregnant, because that's how these things go. Even though they supposedly use protection. So, obviously, we all know that's not 100% foolproof. But anyway, that's what happens. And, you know, she literally just finds out at the beginning of the story. He hadn't been in town for like a month or 2. So she, of course, has to tell him. And, you know, they decide to kind of try to work things out between them. I like the story. Sara Orwig's a really great writer. There were a couple things in the story that are big cliches in romance novels that kind of bugged me. And throughout the beginning of the book, they talk about Stella and how she's very plain. She doesn't wear a lot of makeup. She wears, you know, brown suits with sensible shoes, and she always keeps her brown hair pulled back in a bun, very severe bun and stuff like that. Well, I guess they're going to go later in the book to some sort of event, and he sends her on a spa day where she gets her hair cut and she gets makeup and she gets a new outfit. And now all of a sudden, everybody's falling all over how beautiful she is. You know, and Aaron keeps saying right from the beginning of the book when he thinks about her is that he finds her very attractive, which is great. You know, like there is always somebody for everybody, right? But it just irked on me that he would always, even in his own mind, start with, well, you know, most people wouldn't find her that attractive, but I think she's beautiful, which is fine. But you know what? If you ask my husband, I'm hoping he would answer this correctly. You know, if you asked him, he'd probably say I was the most beautiful woman in the world. Right after Winona Ryder. That would be his, you know, stipulation. I would be second. But I don't think he would ever say, well, you know, most women or most men don't think my wife is very attractive, but I think she's beautiful. And right? Am I right? Like, it just irked on me. And the way even he fell all over her after this makeover. And again, it's that cliche. You know, you see it in all those teen-type movies, or you see it even in adult movies. You know, Miss Congeniality. It's one of my favorite movies. And, you know, Sandra Bullock goes through this whole transformation, and suddenly everybody thinks she's, like, the best thing ever. She was adorable before, you know? Like, I don't know. I don't know. That one cliche is always the one thing that has always bothered me. I love makeup. I love wearing makeup. I haven't been able to do it in a while. We haven't had the money. But I love getting my nails done. I love doing those girly things. And I love dressing in, you know, stuff that fits me and stuff that looks good on me. Do I do it for anybody else? No, I do it because I love it. And that's why you should do it. You should never do it to make anybody else happy. And it just, to me, felt like he sent her on this makeover because he wanted it. Like, she kept saying, no, I really don't need it. Oh, but I want to do this for you. I want to do this for you. And that's very, very sweet. But you didn't have to get your hair cut. You didn't have to do your makeup if you weren't comfortable like that. And she even keeps saying, I don't recognize myself. Now, if I cut my hair, it's still me. It's not that big of a difference. Do you know what I mean? If you guys go back, if you're ever interested, go back and watch my first video and look at how short my hair was. It's not that big of a change. You know, I grew my hair out because I wanted to. And actually, side note, since that very first video that I ever filmed on this channel, I haven't cut my hair since. Not once have I been to get my hair cut. That's how long and it's not very, I know some people, their hair grows like a weed. Not mine, unfortunately. It's still whatever. But anyway, that's a total side note. So I just wanted to make mention of that because it did sort of bother me. But other than that, the story itself was really cute and I really enjoyed it. You know, 3 stars is a solid rating for me for a, you know, it's a book I enjoyed. I'm not going to tell everybody you need to run out and read it, but if you're reading the series, definitely check it out. And the last book that I finished this week, guys, yay, was Rock Redemption by Nalini Singh. This is another contemporary romance novel. This is book number 3 in the Rock Kiss series, and it was narrated on audio by Justine O'Keefe. This was published in 2015 by TKA Distribution. It has an average rating of 4.04 stars on Goodreads. I give it 4 stars. I got 4 challenges completed out of this one. For the Triple RC Monthly Challenge, challenge number 4, that April is International Guitar Month, so you had to read a book that had a musician or something in the book, and obviously this series is about a rock band. Another one for my Stacking the series, I'm now at 17 out of 55 books complete. For the Cinderella team for Magic Mirror for this week, which was read a book that is 3rd in a series, so this one obviously worked. And for the Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs challenge, I got Zircon, I think is how you say that stone. Read a book with earth tones on the cover or one with a famous character. Noah, the lead male character in this book, is a famous, as I said, rock musician. So the whole premise of this book, or this series, is about a rock band, as I said. The first book is about the lead singer. The second book is actually about, so the first book is about the lead singer, Fox, and his girlfriend, Molly. Well, now girlfriend, Molly, like as the series goes on. So it's their relationship. Molly's best friend, Charlotte, is who appears in book number 2, but it's not with another member of the band. It's with some other random person. I'm making it sound like she just picked up some random guy at a bar. That's not what I meant. It's outside of the entire rock band scenario. The only reason that ties everything together is that she's best friends with Molly. And Molly and the band are mentioned in book number 2. Book number 2.5, so 2.5, which was actually about a 4-hour long audiobook, so it's not a really short story, was about David, who's the drummer of the band. I almost wonder, but I guess Charlotte's story was a lot more complex than David's story, which is why she probably did it that way. She probably meant for Charlotte's story to only be like the novella and David's story to be the full-length novel, but there wasn't as much story. Do you know what I mean? They worked better the way that they were written. And now the third book is about Noah, who is one of the lead guitarists in the band. Now Noah, you've been meeting throughout all the other books, and he's an a-hole, to be completely blunt. He uses women, he's not the nicest guy, he drinks, he has anger issues, and, at the very beginning of this book, I did not like him at all. I had some major issues with him. Kit is our lead female character in this book, and she has been friends with the band since before they made it big. They met one night when she was working at a coffee shop, and they came in just before close. And, you know, she was kind of waitressing and she was the only one left in there. And they started, you know, very quietly playing some music, like singing lyrics to a song and tapping with, you know, like the cutlery on the table kind of idea. And she's like, oh, no, no, you're not bothering me. Go ahead. And then they kind of became friends. And so that's her backstory with the band. And her and Noah had never really exceptionally been close, but she kind of had a thing for him. So this is their relationship. I don't want to give any more away than that, because this story needs to be experienced going into it sort of blind. Because it's not until the very, very end of the book that you find out certain key pieces of information. And I really think it made you want to keep reading. The one thing I will say about this series is this is not a fluffy contemporary series. This has a lot of dark undertones to it, this entire series, not just this book in general. The David story, the novella, wasn't as dark. It was more on the fluffier contemporary side. But, like I said, a lot of dark. And when I say dark, I don't mean like supernatural kind of dark. I mean some very deep and dark topics come up in these books. Sexual assault, assault on a minor or a child, you know, stuff like that, like rape is something, you know, PTSD is something that comes up in this, abuse, you know, these are very dark and disturbing topics. There is still some lightness to these books, and I think it balances very, very well. Nalini Singh does this beautifully, and, you know, the light and the dark is balanced, like I said, very, very well. I love this series. I started this one on a whim because I needed it for a challenge. I think the first book, I think it was last year. Nalini Singh was one of the authors of like the featured author for the month for the RRC. And I read the first book then because she also writes quite a bit of paranormal, which, as you guys know, I'm not into. So I went with her contemporary series, and I'm super glad I did because I am thoroughly enjoying this, and I do actually have planned to finish the last and final book in the next few months. So I can finish the series off, but I'm very much looking forward to that one. So yeah, if you like that kind of a romance, I absolutely recommend it. All right, guys, I think I actually kept this relatively short, considering the amount of books that I read and considering how long all my other videos normally are when I read half this many books. But very quickly, let me talk about what I am currently reading this week, or this weekend, I should say. My audiobook is Amish Promises by Leslie Gould. This is the first book in the Neighbors of Lancaster County series, and it's being narrated on audio by Stina Nielsen. This one I'm really enjoying. This is a long audiobook, guys. It is over 13 hours on audio, and I am listening to it at, of course, double speed, so that's like, what, 6.5 hours? I have about 4 hours left in this at the speed that I'm listening to it at. So, yeah, it's enjoyable. This is the story about a Amish family in Lancaster County, obviously, and an English family, if you will, or a non-Amish family moves in next door, and it's, you know, there's some backstory to this one. The husband in the English family is a war veteran, and he has come back injured, and his friend Charlie is coming up to kind of help them with the move and things like that, and he meets Eva, excuse me, who is the head of the household for the Amish family. She's living with her brother's family because his wife passed away, and she's helping him look after the children and things like that. So it's the relationship between Eva and Charlie, and it's really, really adorable so far. I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually learning quite a bit about the Amish community reading this, and it's quite interesting because, you know, in my mind, they're living in candlelight and, you know, the modern conveniences and things like that, but they have a phone in their barn in case of emergency, so they, like a landline, so they can call. And, you know, in one scene, the English family is taking Eva and the children into town by car, and she says about the baby, do you have a car seat? I guess without thinking, it's an automatic ask somebody, right? And she's like, oh yes. And then she says later, well, why on earth do you have a car seat? You ride a horse and buggy. And she explains that if they have to go into town, you know, somewhere further than the horse and buggy can take them, there's actual people who will pick them up, like a car service, and drive them into town. She explains that some of the Amish people in the community who have businesses all have computers because they need to know to use computers for business because most people do stuff on computer now. and how, you know, some of the teenagers even have cell phones that they charge using batteries, you know, things like that. So it's very, very interesting, and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I like it. My current ebook is Plain Pursuit by Alison Stone. This is the first book in the Apple Creek series. This is a love-inspired suspense novel. The main characters in this book are not actually Amish, but it takes place in an Amish community, and the lead male character, Eli, he was born and raised in an Amish family, but he was never baptized into the faith. He left before that happened and went on to become an FBI agent kind of idea. And then now something has happened within the Amish community, and he's been called in, and it's her brother who was killed. And, you know, of course, bringing the two of them together for this investigation. So it has hit the ground running right from the beginning. It starts off with this plane crash. And yeah, it's been really good so far, and I'm really liking it. I'm about 20%, 25% of the way through that one. And my current paperback book, or print book, if you will, is not an Amish book because I actually don't have any. But I am currently reading Secrets in Speed Dating by Leah Ashton. This is not part of a series, but it's a Harlequin romance. And yes, it is large print, which is brilliant. It makes it so easy to read. I am about 75% or 75 pages in it. I am really enjoying this one. It is super cute. This is very much, again, that whole romance novel cliche of, you know, there's a girl invited to her best friend's wedding, and she just broke up with a guy, but she doesn't want to look like a loser going by herself. So she hires somebody to be her date for the wedding, and of course romance ensues. That's the cliche or trope or whatever you want to call it. But this one kind of has a nice little twist to it in that he agrees to be her date, but she has to work at his bar because he's short-staffed for the next 5 weeks until the wedding. So kind of a trade-off. And then she's very much, this is a project to her. She wants to make sure that everything is perfect, that it's just as if they had really been dating and they know all these things about her. Well, he proposes to her, well, then why don't we actually date? You know, make it seem more realistic, like, as he called it, fake dating, you know, like, no romantic part to it, but just as if they were a real couple to get to know each other. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it. I like both the characters. This takes place, I believe, actually in Sydney. I think is it Sydney or Perth? I know that's two totally different sides of the Australian coast, right? Am I right? But I'm not sure. There's the city. Those of you in Australia, please let me know which one this is. I know it said it because the reason I'm a little confused is because she moved from one to the other, and I can't remember which because it hasn't been brought up since. I believe it takes place in Perth, but don't quote me. Actually, that wouldn't be, because Sydney would have the Opera House, wouldn't it? So it must be Perth. So yeah, very enjoyable. I'm really, really liking that one. And last but not least, before I let you guys go, because I know a lot of you do love seeing this, very quickly, what I'm going to be knitting on this weekend. I am working on my shawl. There's my purple yarn for my lovely purple shawl that I love so, so much. I am almost done, guys. I have about three more repeats, so 3 more section repeats. So if you look at, like, from, do you see the holes there to there? So I have about 3 more of those sections to complete. And yeah, then I will be done. This thing is huge and lovely, and please don't let the stitches fall off the needles. So there's the 3 colors. I've got all 3 colors in here now. This one was called Grape. This colorway is called Grape. The one in the middle is a one-of-a-kind colorway that was dyed up by the dyer. And this last one is another one-of-a-kind colorway dyed up by my friend Jess for me. And I just love it. So yeah. So that's what I'll be working on this weekend. I'm almost done. Next Saturday is the... oh, actually, I want to mention that before I go. Okay, so there will not be a weekly reads next Saturday. It will be coming on Sunday. I have a friend of mine, Jess, the one who actually dyed this up for me, is coming up to visit. And she actually lives in New Hampshire. And next Saturday is the Toronto Knitters Frolic, not downtown Toronto. It's at the Japanese Cultural Center for those of you who might live in the city and might be interested to check it out. Please do, and if you see me there, come and say hi. So I'm going to that. She's driving up for that. She's coming up on Friday, and she's staying until Sunday morning because it's, I think, about a 9-hour drive for her. So she's leaving early Friday morning. She's going to crash on my couch on Friday. We're going to go to the festival on Saturday, crash on my couch again Saturday night, and then she's going to leave on Sunday earlier because she's, of course, got to go back to work for Monday. So, so there will be no video coming up on Saturday. I will try and get video at the festival if you guys are interested to see what a smaller knitting festival looks like. This is all indoors. I was there last year. It's a lot of fun. I'm not discounting it. I really enjoyed it. I don't have any money to spend, unfortunately, but we're going to see people because a lot of my friends that I haven't seen in a while are going to be there. So that's awesome. So that video will be coming on Sunday. Now, as for videos coming this week, I will next be filming a small book haul. It's not a very big book haul, but I do have a small book haul I want to do. And my May TBR. I will be filming this to be posted later this week. As well as this is, going on, this is Amish in April. That's why I'm reading these Amish books. It is Amish in April, co-hosted by the lovely, she's actually the creator. I am just, along for the ride, essentially. And she asked me to participate, so it's to read, Amish books during this week, and it ends next Thursday. I am vlogging the entire thing. I apologize. Back at Easter, I had promised you guys a vlog. When I went to upload some of my footage, it was corrupted. And yeah, I didn't have enough to really post anything, so I just decided not to. But I'm uploading or posting stuff as I go throughout the day. Like, I'm uploading to my computer and checking the footage, and everything seems to be okay. I don't know, maybe I just had an issue with the camera that week or something. So there will be a vlog coming on Friday. I'm going to compile all the clips and post that on Friday for you guys. So it'll be a little bit of an extra video next week. Anyway, yeah, that's it. So I'm going to let you guys go, and I hope you guys all have a fabulous week, and take care and happy reading, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye.